The coming question is also related to Hudur's tour in Spain, because it is mentioned in one of the sermons that a martyr was killed in Pakistan.
That's right.
Shaheed.
That's right.
Yes.
So what's the question?
The question is how this happened and what is the situation now in Pakistan with respect to the...
Well, a brief background to this martyrdom of an Ahmadi, Chaudhary Riaz Ahmad Sahib, is this, that his father-in-law, who belongs to Shab Qadr, he was a Tahir Allah. So with the grace of Allah, he got a convert from among a people. I don't know their tribe, but it's some strong family group, whose name was Daulat Khan. He was a lawyer as well. He did some other job, but also practiced law. Now, when he became an Ahmadi, the Pathans are brave people, you know. You know, they're martial race, and very often they are very brave. But sometimes, as far as the matter of faith is concerned, they hide it. He was not one of those. He openly declared himself to be an Ahmadi. A strong campaign of hatred and violence was carried out, was launched by not only the mullahs, but his own brothers, his own family members. And they were so violent that they said, you have forfeited the right to live. So according to Islam, we must murder you. He said, all right, do it as you like, but you must give me a chance, first of all, to let you know that I'm a Muslim, and a better Muslim, if anything, after becoming an Ahmadi, and not a worse Muslim. So a debate was held between him and some mullahs who were brought for this special purpose. And after hearing the debate, the family members got divided, because the mullahs themselves said that we have found nothing against Islam in his views. And he has proved from the Holy Quran traditions the validity of his views and their correctness. So we can't issue a fatwa or edict against his life. Now the family got divided. Out of perhaps 6 brothers, 5 supported him after listening to the debate, and the one remained adamant, who was more mullah-like, that no, this man must be murdered. So he left the house, but after a while they ran after him and said, our parents are also ready, everybody is ready to accept you as a family member, come back, there is no problem. Now, having done that, the other mullah-minded brother continued to propagate against him and went to another mullah who was an immigrant from Afghanistan. You see, this is one of the similarities of the case with the Shahada of Shehzada Abdul Latif. And he brought that mullah, who was very rigid and very strong and very ignorant person. So he came, and after a while he issued an edict that this man, according to Islam, must be stoned to death. And there is no other answer for that. But because of the influence of the brothers and family pressures, he was not stoned to death or killed in any manner, but something was brewing, and it could have happened any time, they thought. It was pending on him. So, I mean, because of sensing such imminent danger, the matter was reported to the authorities, and they imprisoned him under the plea of public security, safety, etc. Some acts covering this, and they say it's a preventive arrest or preventive detention. And they detained some of his brothers as well. These brothers and some others. And they said, well, we must detain members from both sides, and they have to be bailed out if somebody is ready to run the bail for a certain amount fixed by the judge. Now this is how the conspiracy began. It was all hatched as a form of conspiracy that as far as the relatives are concerned, somebody, local member, would go and bail him out. And they will leave him alone. You know, if the brother wanted to kill him, he should have bailed him out and then killed him. So he was left alone because they said there was no local person to bail him out. So the others were bailed out. So these two Ahmadis who were involved in preaching to him, particularly Rashid Khan Sahib, who was mainly instrumental in his conversion. I may have said he was converted with the efforts of Chaudhary Riaz Ahmad Sahib, but he was the son-in-law to the person who converted him, Chaudhary Riaz Ahmad Sahib. So now, when a new date was given for them to offer a bail, the one brother who conspired this, the one who was the vigorous campaigner against him, he twice approached them and said, our brother is in the jail, please come and bail him out. Now the intention was, it was a two-edged weapon. If they didn't, they would tell their brother, look here, you are rotting in the jail because of them. They are not offering any bail. And if they came, then they would get the chance to have them murdered. So in anticipation of their arrival at the right moment, he had gathered a number of hooligans, which ran into some say thousands, and led this procession himself. They were waiting for their arrival. The moment they arrived, they surrounded him, Rashid Khan Sahib, and his brother, and his son-in-law. Now then, suddenly, they started stoning him, pelting stones and beating. One was dragged to another side, one was dragged to another side, and they were surrounded, and the police was watching. Not a bullet was fired, not a warning was given. They became complete silent spectators to this crime. So practically, he was stoned first. In the first stone was hit at the head, forehead. Then he fell down. Then they started stoning him, then beating him with whatever they can. And when they assured that he was dead, then the police came for their share of reward from Allah. So they kicked him one after the other and said, this is our share. So this is how things are happening in Pakistan. This is what they understand Islam to be. Then he was, except for a small underwear, he was made naked and dragged in the streets with a rope bound to his feet. And then they started jumping over his body and saying, Allahu Akbar, Alhamdulillah. Now this is what things have come to in Pakistan. These mullahs have painted the image of Islam as if it is the most barbaric religion in the whole world. And this is why the West manipulates this and exploits this situation. It's no fault of the West alone. They are offered this material from the Muslims themselves. Can you imagine Hadhrat Muhammad ﷺ and his followers doing this to anyone? See? And to a disgrace to the maximum they could. Now the police, first of all, gave the plea that we can't move in, we can't do anything because it's a law and order problem. As if murder is no law and order problem, but if they reacted against the police, that would be the law and order problem. This was no problem. But when on the issue of making him naked and dragging him in the streets was debated between two parties, there were some among them who had some nobility left, who had some, at least some image of Islam intact in their hearts. They said, this is not proper, this is not possible that Islam should permit you to do this. So a fight was about to ensue between the two groups. Then police fired a few shots in the air. Then it was no longer a law and order problem. And they ran away, in a jitty, without waiting further. But those who wanted to drag him, they remained. So they had no danger from the police. That group was scared off, which was more decent, in fact. So then they had their way as they liked, and after a while the body was removed to Peshawar, handed over to Ahmadis, and then they took him to Rabwa and buried him as a martyr's burial. The older one was saved with the grace of Allah because it was decreed. This is what their close relatives had already seen in dreams. Now just 1 or 2 days before this Chaudhary Riaz Ahmad Sahib went to meet Daulat Khan in the jail, and he said to him that, look here, I want to follow the footsteps of Shehzada Abdul Latif Sahib. This is my prayer, this is my desire, and I'm telling you, this is what I want. Now how Allah accepted his prayer is proved not just from the incident, but one of his relatives, his brother's wife, saw a dream that a goat was about to be slaughtered, and her father was going to slaughter another goat. She saw something, she was afraid, and she thought perhaps I should do sadaqah and slaughter a goat. Then a goat was slaughtered and quartered to pieces. And the father wanted to slaughter another goat, and then she said, one goat has already been slaughtered, it's enough, leave that alone. Now this is a very important, significant incident of the dream, because about Hadhrat Shehzada Abdul Latif Sahib, Hadhrat Masih received a revelation which said, Shatane Tuzbahane, 2 goats will be slaughtered. Now they were two, the father-in-law and the son-in-law. And he had desired, not the father-in-law, to follow the footsteps of Hadhrat Abdul Latif Sahib. So their relatives saw the dream that one goat was slaughtered, not the other one. So although he was an older man, he was beaten up very thoroughly, but he survived with the grace of Allah. And although people thought he was dead, they took him to be dead, and yet he was listening and he knew everything. Now there was another dream about this old, stronger heart. One of the family members saw a dream that there were 2 buffaloes, 2 bulls, yes. Or was it bulls or something? That there were 2 bulls or 2 cows. Kya tha dono mein se? Anyway, either males or females, it's irrelevant comparatively. But he saw in a dream that there were 2 bulls. This is what I remember. And the weaker was killed, and the stronger was killed, and the weaker survived. He was surprised at this. How could it mean? The stronger should have survived, and the weaker should have been killed. But they fought with it, not with each other, but something happened to them. As a result, he was surprised to find that the weaker still survived, and the stronger had given in. So when this happened, then he understood the meaning. This was a young man, stout and strong. 2 attempts of murder had already been made against his life, Once in 1974, he was stabbed in Mardan because he belonged to Mardan. His father-in-law belonged to Shabkhadar, the place where this happened. It is not very far from Peshawar. So he was stabbed and he said, it's just nothing, it's just the beginning, that sort of thing. Then during 74, Anti-Ahmadiyya riots, which are all organized and cooked up, some Ahmadi members were shot at Sargodha station. He was one of those who received the bullet injury. And then he said, it is just the beginning, it's not the end, it's a small thing. So he knew throughout that he was in for this martyrdom. He was a very brave man, he stood up to it, and knowing what was happening there, he said, no, I must go, and I would not desert my new Ahmadi brother from among them. And he died a death which is described as hayat by the Holy Quran. لا تقولوا لمن يقتل في سبيل الله أموات بل أحياء ولكن لا تشعرون. And in the ربهم يرزقون, these are the words used. So I don't say his martyrdom was equal in status to Hadhrat Shehzada Abdul Latif Sahib. His status was beyond every other person. He was a martyr of the whole age. And he was not only a shaheed, he was also a siddiq. Because if you read about him, you'll be surprised at his piety and his greatness. And he went to Kabul knowing that it was a plot to have him murdered, knowing that they were very cruel people, they would commit all sorts of atrocities against him. But he didn't even remember his family, he didn't even mention them. Went bravely like, I'm going to my end. And he said, my country needs my blood. So that was Hadhrat Shehzada Abdul Latif Sahib. Hadhrat Masih has paid him very great tribute. And he said he is a model for all times to come. So because models are imitated, so that is why he wanted to imitate that model, and that is why there was such deep desire on his part to meet an end similar to that of Shehzada Abdul Latif Sahib. He was also stoned, conspiracy was made against him. He was also called to Kabul under a ruse, under an excuse which was not true. So many things are similar. And although in this particular case, he didn't hold a debate, but the Pathan convert, who was pivotal in all this problem, he held a debate with the mullahs, which also created a very similar situation to the situation of the time of Hadhrat Shehzada Abdul Latif Sahib. When the Amir of Kabul, it was Habibullah, he invited him to come under some different excuse. He knew what was going to happen. But he organized a debate between him and the ulama of that period, that time. There were 12 of them who participated in that debate, and the 12 greatest ulama of Afghanistan who were so rigid and narrow-minded and bigoted. But Shehzada Abdul Latif Sahib held a status among the ulama which rose head and shoulders above them. He was a very learned man. So during the debate, despite their hard-heartedness, they got convinced that he is right. Imagine this to happen in Afghanistan in those days. So all 12, without exception, gave their verdict that he is right, nothing wrong. And this is exactly how it happened there in the case of this Daulat Khan. Daulat Khan. And the first group agreed that yes, he is right. Then this vicious man, his vicious brother, he brought another mullah from Afghanistan. Now this is exactly what happened in the case of Shehzada Abdul Latif Sahib. After this was declared that by the mullah that he is all right, This man Nasrullah Khan, who was the governor of Kabul at that time, who happened to be the cousin of Habibullah Khan. He was a strong man and he was a very mullah-minded person. He did not agree with his brother's attitude, his cousin's attitude, who was the Amir of whole Kabul. But the issue was so sensitive that he couldn't take a stand in favor of Shehzada Abdul Latif Sahib. Although he loved him very much, he respected him, he wanted to save his life, but Nasrullah Khan exploited Islam and created a stir and, invited some other ulama of his thinking in mind, and then they gave the verdict that no, he is not a Muslim anymore, so he should be beaten to death or stoned to death. There are many similarities of that case reappearing in this age. So I must say it's a great martyrdom. Although, of course, Shehzada Sahib's status is above, but he is imitated again in this century. Left one thing out, it's not that he knew, it is that he had himself conspired this. He had planned this. And the proof is that he himself, who was the bitterest enemy of them and his brother, he twice went to Chaudhary Riaz Ahmad Khan and pleaded with him that please don't leave us, our brother, alone in the prison. So come and have him bailed out. Then they started jumping over his body with his shoes on, and then the police joined them in kicking him. He scoffed that we should also get some favor from some of his followers. He was a very highly respected man. Came to him to warn him. Okay, don't come, we know it's a conspiracy, and the king wants you only to be murdered, and there is nothing else. He said, leave my way, because it's my land. Who wants my blood? And I would not hesitate. So that is how he went to his fate, which was the greatest fate, of course, which one can achieve in this world. Yes. He was Nasrullah Khan. He was the governor of Kabul. Now we have started to mention Shehzada Abdul Latif Sahib. I would like to tell you something else, something more about him, because he was a very special person. He was not an ordinary man. His status in Kabul was that of the chief alim, the greatest in Afghanistan. Officially, he was the alim of the court of the Amir, and he was respected far and wide in the entire country. He was not a small man, a mullah who was the chief of all the mullahs. And he was so pious that he used to receive revelations from Allah, and he had seen that this was going to happen to him in his visions. He was all ready. When he went to Qadian, it so happened that he was going to say Hajj. He was on the way to say Hajj. He had gone to India from Kabul with the purpose of proceeding further through Bombay. In those days, they used to take ship. And he heard that somebody has claimed to be a Mahdi. When he heard this, he said, look here, this is a very important thing. Because Muhammad Rasulullah has predicted that a Mahdi would appear. And if you hear, then you must go to meet him. So he said, I must go there because this is more important in this sense, that Hajj will be performed next year, but Mahdi is the person of many, many centuries, and it is highlighted by Hadhrat Rasulullah that when you hear of him, you must go to him. So he said, I must investigate. So he went to Qadian just by way of finding out if he is right or wrong. When he saw him, he didn't ask for any dalil. That's why I said he was a Siddiq as well as a Shaheed. He looked at his face and he said, this man cannot be a liar. It's impossible. And then he spoke a few words with him and discussed some matters of his claim. And he was a great alim himself. He understood every word. He said, yes, you are absolutely right. Then he decided to stay there in his company for a while. So he stayed there. He was so, he fell in such love with him that he lost his personal honor, dignity, everything. He was a completely subjugated person, a man of the humblest in his appearance before him. Once he bent down and touched his feet. Hadhrat said, "Don't do it." But he just couldn't help. So then Hadhrat Masih said, "Al-amru fawqul adam." Immediately he straightened up. No hesitation anymore. That type of person he was. Very enlightened. When he took leave of Masih, he knew he would not see him again. It was a very sad departure. But he went with the resolution that he must offer his martyrdom to the country where he belonged. Now, some very interesting things have come to light which I want to share with you, because now when we have started talking to him, you must know all about and around him what happened. Now, although before martyrdom he was kept under the severest torture that you can imagine, but he didn't wilt. He remained steadfast and upright. Nothing changed his will. So at last this happened, as I told you. And now I quote a British writer who has written a book on the Amir which ruled in those days. It is more than 100 years ago that this happened. His name was Habibullah, and he was a very despotic Amir. So the title of this book is Under the Absolute Amir. Now this man was an English engineer, British engineer, of a very renowned person, and so knowledgeable in his branch of science that he was appointed by the Amir of Kabul to be the chief engineer of Afghanistan. He was the head of all engineering departments. He had no knowledge about Ahmadiyya, about anything. He only mentioned things about hearsay. So what he says of hearsay in his book is just wrong. One can see that this was fed to him by the reporters who wanted willfully to malign Ahmadiyya. So there is obviously, every Ahmadi can immediately know that he is being fed on gossip and things, one-sided stories about Ahmadiyya. But what he tells about with his own eyes, there suddenly you see the style change. And everything is so correctly and precisely reported that had he not done that, we would might never have known as to what happened and all along how he behaved and this and that. So by the grace of Allah, these most important moments of his life and the history of Ahmadiyya were preserved in that book. And I have read that book with deep interest, and I found this difference, Now he, among other things, he reports how he went to the Maqtal, to the place where he was to be martyred. He reports about the role of Nasrullah Khan. He reports about the role of the Amir. He tells that just before he was about to be martyred, the Amir deeply respected him so much, in fact, that he went to him and whispered into his ears, "I want to save you. Please say now that you're not an Ahmadi." They said, "Qadiani." I said, "No question, do it what you like." And then he says that Amir told him, "All right, I'll announce it myself. You are not saying anything." He said, "You are not permitted to do that. Otherwise he would shout back that Amir is lying." So he left no room for the Amir to help him in any way, because it was related to his change of his beliefs. And then he says when he was walking the streets, he was bound hand and foot with heavy chains, and he walked with such dignity that it is rare to see such dignity in a man like he was. All this description is what he saw with his own eyes. Then he reports that just before the last order for his stoning was given, Abdul Latif Sahib addressed the Amir and the others around him. He said, look here, you are making a very grave blunder and you are going to pay very heavily, because God has told me that such calamity will befall this country in response to what you are doing to me, that it will be rare that you have never seen such punishment as God has told me is going to befall you. Now some we are witnessing now. There is no need for any British historian to preserve. Everybody knows what's happening. But what he reports is very strange and so fascinating, unbelievable, because he didn't believe in Ahmadiyyat. He had no idea what Ahmadiyyat was. But he was so impressed with what happened immediately after that he said, I must report it. While the issue of the book is political, but he deviates and pauses to tell this story completely, and then he starts the subject, takes up the subject again. So he says that after he was martyred, everybody was surprised to see a deeply yellow windstorm, dust storm it's called, Andhi. Because everybody was surprised, because nobody had ever seen such a threatening looking yellow storm before in their lives. And in Kabul, such dust storms do not come. I mean, they are left around in other parts of Afghanistan, but they don't reach Kabul itself. And particularly, he said, they were further surprised because that was not the season for these dust storms. And it suddenly came, and it was so threatening that everybody rushed back. Not like something which happened at the crucifixion of Jesus Christ, And then people started talking. They said, he was right. There was something about this man which God loved, and he's going to punish us. Then he said, within a few days' time, suddenly cholera erupted and struck Kabul and the areas around, despite the fact that there was no season for cholera. So he said people started dying in streets, in homes, everywhere, and that cholera was so punishing that the people died in absolute torture. Now, the interesting thing is yet to come. He said the Amir of Kabul, not Afghanistan, this Nasrullah Khan, who was mainly instrumental for this cruelty to him, he was afraid. He was scared. Deep inside, he started to believe that it is the punishment from Allah what I have done to this man. So he shut the doors of his palace, completely locked himself in. And he said, no food or water can come in, nothing will go out. Every servant, every body was locked in completely. And the palace was sealed. Now this is the reporting of this, the British engineer. This is not something I'm making up for myself. Anybody can see from the library under the absolute agreement, he will read these things. Now he says, there was a young wife of his whom he loved madly. And he was afraid for her more than for himself. And despite all the precautions, she died before him with such torture that it turned him mad. And ever since, the Amir of Governor of Kabul was not heard of in public, was not seen in public, because he had lost control of his mental faculties, and he became a raving mad person. So that is why he was hidden from public appearance, and he was never seen again in public. He said, this is what I have seen with my own eyes. I don't know what happened, why it happened, but I stand witness to this, that as the Shaheed said, exactly, even more surprisingly, punishing, the punishment of God and wrath of God befell that country. Now that is what he knew, and his knowledge was limited to that time. What we know is that ever since Afghanistan has never had any moment of peace. The bloodshed which continues now, inexplicable. There is no Russian presence, no threat to Islam in any way. But they are fighting with each other, one after the other. One group is fighting the other, and the third is created, and they also join in. And there doesn't not seem to be any prospects of peace in Afghanistan, and yet they do not understand. Those of the followers of Hadhrat Shehzada Abdul Latif Sahib who belong to his family, they are honored by Allah, and they are found everywhere in the world in such high places of honor and dignity, professionally, otherwise. But that part of the family which didn't follow him are still living like paupers in the same old area. So strange things have happened on either side, on the punishing side as well as the rewarding side. So this was not an ordinary shahada, it was a great shahada. Right?